Hello?
Hi, Jim.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Flavia Nove. We're all struggling to get on your
I'm
hangout.
sorry. I'm not sure what the... Boy, I've never had... Usually this goes really easy. I'm sorry this has been such a pain. I'm not sure what the issue is. I'm just sending a new link out. Yeah, it should be coming right this second.
Okay.
It went from Google to YouTube in the last, 4 or 5 weeks. And I'm not sure why that made so much trouble.
Jim, I went from landline to cell phone, so that's where I am. So
Yeah, I'm not sure what. So you guys should get a new link in the next 2 seconds here.
I just got it, and I'm trying to join you. There we go.
Hi.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
All right, let me see the join.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Okay, turning off my phone. How are you?
Wow.
I
Okay.
can see you, but I can't hear you.
Okay. Well, me?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Where's my echo?
Is my headset too weird?
It's really weird, Esther.
It is weird. It feels like it's missing control.
I was doing okay. All right, how's that?
I gotta you look very cliche with your headset and your hair back. You look like an Asian male, traffic controller.
You look much more approachable now.
I was going for Asian male air traffic control. I thought that was the tone. Is that not the tone we wanted?
You're spot on. Oh, sorry.
All right.
Sorry to scream, Jim. Jim's shutting us all down.
Oh, no, I'm trying to get the sound balanced. Sorry. You can keep talking. We'll edit everything down when we're done, so.
I'd like to be 10 pounds slimmer and much more well put together in general.
Aren't you the girl that just lost 50 pounds?
Right.
I was going to put all these militant feminist slogans on the whiteboard behind me and see if anybody noticed, but
You want to laugh? I'm actually in my husband's office, so you'll notice how many of his awards are on the wall.
Dara, the nice thing is that nobody can read them and we'll all assume they're yours.
Right. So it's the Harvard and the pen and all that stuff that's right there, but don't worry, it's not even me.
All right.
I like your soothing flower, Flavia.
That's
Is that
my
what you call
agave
therapy?
plant. It's my very rarely do residents or medical students who are interviewing ever recognize it's agave, and that's what I get myself through the days with right now.
Wow.
Yeah. All right.
Life is hard.
What?
I didn't realize it was going to be on air. I'm so glad I got my hair blown out. Feels
Oh
good.
my God, I know. Gosh, I'm feeling
I know. I don't feel ready for this. Can we
Yeah.
reschedule? I want to get my hair blown out.
I have no praise. I'm very happy. Jim, what happens when you 3 academic women together? This is unfortunately the pre-hangout.
You totally ambushed us. You ambushed us with good hair. I'm never over trusting you again. All right, sorry, Jim. Were we here for a reason?
We've never done more than 2 people before, so we're doing this. The way it's set, the one of us that's speaking is going to be what's on screen.
Okay.
So if that gets distracting, but if we all talk, it'll flip around really fast. But the Brady Bunch thing looks really weird. I was just looking at it.
Okay.
Are you sure? Because I think that would be really fun.
Yeah.
We gotta look at each other and.
Yeah, can we do this? And so, Jim, if you feel like anything is going in a direction you don't want, or you have any tips about speaking up or slowing down, I'll keep an eye. We can all keep an eye on the group chat. So if you want to cue us that way.
That's great.
You want to go ahead? What?
We can just keep it really more than 10 or 15 minutes. No one will watch it, and we can edit it down. So you can talk as long as you want, but you don't have to get into too much detail.
We don't.
I also say something else that I really like the way Jim is positioned. So he's looking down into it. Dara, I saw that. Because I feel like I'm looking off to the side. Okay, we're all ready.
How's that?
Do it.
Okay, I have the questions up behind my camera.
Oh,
Well, I have like a whole 9 screen going on here.
Good God.
But I'm in a finance office right now. This is not a doctor's office.
Or you're landing the spaceship on the Mars.
I don't have the headset.
Okay. All right, let's get going.
Wait, what?
I'm just going to put up the questions really quick on the chat just so Jim can see them.
Do we want to put our names on the bottom?
Oh, can we do that?
Yeah. So if you go to the toolbox on the left, where you the little with the tools, and then you go to your name on the lower third. You can put your name. You can put anything you want.
Can someone do that for me, Dara?
You have to do it yourself. So go to the left-hand side of your screen.
All right, my screen. Okay.
Take your mouse, and there's a chat. Then there's the green thing, and then eventually I'll show you. Look at my screen. Okay. Ready? You see this right here?
I don't have that. I have a screen share, a chat, and some tags.
Over on the left.
That, you don't have anything else?
But that's all I got.
I get an error. Try to click on that. That's weird, huh?
I have chat, screen share, and showcase. Only 3 things, Dara, come up.
Where's Michelle and we need her?
Oh, God, that's fantastic.
Yeah, is it flipped though, right?
No, it's good.
Now it's good?
Yeah,
Right.
that's good.
There you go. Now you guys can try.
But I can't do that. Now you look way better than all of us.
How do you not have it? Do you have
And I
Jim?
can find it. I can edit it in if you want it.
Can you?
I think so.
Do you want me to take it off then?
No, leave it. It looks nice. Or what do you guys think?
I like
We kind
that.
of look like we're the crazy aunt and uncle from a different family who are invited to Thanksgiving.
And I'm the stable one. You know this is never going to go well.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
mine is just consistent error. So,
All right, so I'm taking it off then. We either all have it or we don't.
oh, yours looks good. I wonder why it's doing that. That's so annoying. I don't know if it's like my firewall.
Try. Is it just if you go to did you delete it?
Oh wait, hold on 1 second.
It's totally there.
It says Hangout Toolbox needs your permission in order to start. I say continue, and then it gives me an error.
Let me see your screen. Can you just share your screen for a second?
How do I show you my screen?
The green underneath the chat.
Oh.
And who do you share it with?
You'll see. She's going to share it, and then everyone's going to see it in a minute.
Okay, I'm sharing mine just to show you.
Okay, that's me. Okay, yes, Flavia. So you see that thing right there? That's the toolbox. Press continue.
So then hold on. Then I press whoa, where are you going? That's the error I keep on getting. And then
Fine. Press cancel, try again. You know what? What email are you on?
Gmail.
Okay. Now you're all sharing at the same time. I'm fucking schizophrenic with myself on every screen.
That's crazy. That's cool. There we go.
I just took mine off because I can't do it. And I hate to tell you this, but I'm doing carpool today at 4:30, so we have to get moving.
All right, so let's get started.
All right. Let's just start interviewing then. Can everybody see okay?
Yeah.
It should still be working.
Flavs, I think I want more of your head and less of your agave. Is that possible? Yeah.
Hey, that's nice.
And
Good.
me and my beautiful hair is good. So, Jim, you don't know me at all, but this is like not a thing I do.
I might turn off my camera most of the time you guys are talking. We'll just see.
I would if I was you too.
You don't want to be associated with this.
Not even a little bit.
I'm the only one with nothing interesting to add. All right, should we just get started? Scott can edit it from here. Where are we at? 12 minutes. All right. Hey, it's Jim Miner, the Senior Associate Editor for Academic Emergency Medicine. Let's try it again. Jim Miner, the Senior Associate Editor for Academic Emergency Medicine, doing our monthly interview with the Editor-in-Chief pick. And this month we had a great article. We've got several of the authors here today. The article is the development of best practice recommendations to support the hiring, recruitment, and advancement of women physicians in emergency medicine. A really exciting article. We've got 3 of our authors here that are so nice to come and talk to me. Esther Chu, Dara Cass, got that right? Class?
Good enough, Cass. He's in the article in front of you.
Oh, well, that would be a really smart way to do it, wouldn't it? Don't worry, I have to do all the editing, so I can't read my phone because my eyes.
Number 1 or number 2 and number last?
I'm just looking up the questions now before we get going, so I don't get too far behind. I'm sorry. Here we go. And Flavia Nobe. I'm going to start again because I'm all over the place. Now I've got my questions in front of me too. All right, Scott, here we are at 14 minutes. This is where you can watch until, just gonna mark it. Okay. Hi, this is Jim Miner, Senior Associate Editor for Academic Emergency Medicine, doing our monthly interview with the authors for the Editor-in-Chief pick for November this month. And we were lucky enough to have the authors here of this month's pick, which was a work looking at women in emergency medicine. Our authors today we have with us are Dara Cass, Esther Chu, and Flavia Nobe. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So, can you give us an overview of why you wrote this paper and kind of what your goals were?
Esther, that's you.
Sure. Well, Jim, the disparities that women physicians face in emergency medicine, and in fact across all medicine, have been very well documented. And as women who have been involved in women's groups in emergency medicine for a while, we would for years have these sessions about how you can overcome these biases and what you can do personally to try to do things like negotiate better or form a network of women. And try to combat them. But we really were doing nothing on the level of the organization to combat what we really feel like are systemic biases. So, the kind of challenges we get from junior faculty coming up or even from residents was, when we go into an organization, how do we judge that organization by how supportive it is of its women, and also what can I take to my employer who's very eager to have a gender equitable workplace but doesn't even know where to start. So that was really the birthplace of this, feeling like we wanted to create a resource that was created by physicians in a lot of different practice settings across the country that would be broadly applicable, that would be a good starting point for conversations around establishing gender equity in the workplace. So this was meant to be a resource for everybody.
Cool. So, I read this and it's really a great piece, but a lot of it really seems like common sense. Like, why did you need to publish this at all?
Oh, can I answer that, please?
That one's for Dara.
So, it's common sense for people that are paying attention, I think. A lot of it is actually, we've found over and over again, the ability to provide a neutral space to advocate for these issues makes them happen faster, right? So what's common sense to individuals on a one-on-one level, so if you're an employer and you're like, of course I want to give parental leave to all my staff, or of course I want to provide equitable opportunities for physicians who are coming up for employment. Oh my God.
Or balance. Help with work-life balance, perhaps.
Okay, I can't do this right now. I gotta go. Wait, I'm sorry.
This is a good moment for editing.
I'm sorry. This is horrible. Guys, I need 20 minutes, okay?
We can edit too. And
Wait, if you're gonna cut this out, you need to know.
my kids are about 12.
You were saying something important right there.
I know, I usually am. Okay, so what I was saying was, and going back to why this is really important for common sense issues, is that we have found over and over again that providing this information in a neutral space and not burdening the individual physician with advocating for these issues on their own makes them happen faster. And so even though many people, especially our generation of physicians, I would say anybody who's been practicing between, let's say, 5 and 15 years, sees these as very important common needs for us to have, if you're trying to advocate for these positions for somebody that's either in a different generation or in a different system, this paper becomes really very useful.
The other thing that I want to add, Jim, although you say that these are common sense recommendations, it's pretty shocking that our national organizations had no statements to support or encourage or foster equity across different organizations and different settings, both ACEP and SAM. And part of this article was also the adoption of these practices as something that our organizations support. So while common sense, there was no legitimacy to them, and we really felt like our organizations needed to better have a groundwork or a foundation of where to start moving forward from. And so that to us was also a byproduct that felt really important and something that we felt like we accomplished and moved forward with.
Do you foresee any pushback from these guidelines?
Well, they're common sense in general. So the pushback may be in how forcefully people take them forward to their departments, their institutions, and say these are mandatory. And our hope was not that these would all be instituted. Well, our hope is that they're all instituted at one time, but we understood that there may be, like a buffet menu, bits and parts that work within each institution, within each culture or milieu that move a certain department forward versus things that don't work. If you're financially really strapped and you guys are just trying to make it, maybe there's an area that doesn't work for you, but maybe it's reasonable to think about, is there bias within my institution? Is there bias within my faculty group? So I think there's pushback if you try to say, I'm going to put all of these in at one time in one moment. But at the same time, that was never the intent, only the hope.
And Jim, part of our process for this was really to come up with some recommendations that almost everybody could agree with. So, we had about 29 stakeholders who reviewed these and were able to vote on the specific recommendations. And some of the things people felt, that's a great idea, but you know what, we could just never implement that. Like, I think one of our early suggestions was to subsidize childcare for things like conferences, travel, and feel like they could be as active as their peers. And that was something people just felt like, how could we actually do that, promise that for all of our employees, potentially, our male and our female employees who have children. But then something like having routine audits for salary equity, for compensation equity, that was something that almost everybody felt like was both a good idea and something that they could financially support. And maybe, some of the smaller departments couldn't do that every single year, but it's something they did, spread out over time. But there were many things like that almost everybody felt like was both useful and also feasible. So I think there was a lot about the process that we went through to vet these ideas that made everything on the table less controversial, easier to swallow. In addition to what Flavia was saying about, we're not saying that everybody needs to do all of these things. It's really just a menu.
The other thing, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying is that this is an opportunity to have specialty-specific best practices to support people in our field, but specifically women on certain things. But a lot of these are gender neutral, or at least applicable to physicians of both genders. And so one of the things that we really enjoyed about this process was when we vetted these processes for women, we were able to highlight how many of them were good for people. And so remembering that we don't put out good practices for people as a specialty, right? We don't look at our people and say, how can we support everybody better? And maybe by doing this for women and highlighting the things that women specifically do need, like women's mentoring and networking groups and other opportunities for access to resources, we can also make everybody else better. You know, because that's a good byproduct of the research that we did.
Yeah, I really felt that while I was reading your paper. It just felt like stuff that I can't believe we don't already do as general practice everywhere.
Well, I think you're fantastic and amazing, and I would love to come work for you if that's what you think is common sense. The reality of it is, you know, we are unfortunately a minority of people who agree on this. And there are many, many programs, departments, and areas of the country that don't necessarily disagree, but just aren't thinking about it in the same framework as you and I are, or as we are as a group, or a consortium of people who care about this issue. So if you are open to the idea of making a workplace friendly, supportive, and progressive in terms of creating equality, here, and you don't know how to do it, here's a fantastic framework that's pre-thought out for you, pre-packaged. It's the Blue Apron of meal services, how to make a place better for us. I think this is not necessarily novel or not outrageous, but it is something that people aren't thinking of and don't have the language to talk about.
So there's this concept, champions for change, right? That happens all over the world in all different practices, whether it's medicine, law, business, and you know, to have champions is really to affect change. And unfortunately, in the way our world works, with over 80% of all chairs being male and deans of medical schools, it requires male champions for change. And so, hearing you say that this is both obvious and clearly necessary inspires people like me to say we have a champion. And so the more champions we can identify through this article and empower, the better off we're all.
Well, definitely setting a guideline is the way to start then, huh?
Yeah.
It's really cool what you guys have done. It's really it's something that we really needed as a specialty, just something to draw off of. And like you said, if everything can't be done everywhere, at least now there's like a list of ideas. I think a lot of people just don't know where to start. I don't think a lot of people realize what they're doing that isn't working for everyone else, because 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing about this was we thought, well, let's see what's out there, because there's probably a template out in medicine that some other specialties have started before us. And we actually surprisingly found there wasn't a lot in medicine. I mean, the closest thing we took as a template was something that was, I think, in a school of law. Is that right?
School of Law, Esther.
And so, so it's just, we have the same surprise that everybody else does. The first gut reaction by people is, this has to be out there. It's just such common sense. And we're like, well, we don't want to do something that has, is redundant. Why would we put all this effort into it? But we pretty much looked in every corner of the literature and looked up many individual institutions and tried to find these specialty-specific guidelines. So the nice thing was, when we finally leapt into this project, our feeling was that we could help emergency medicine really be the specialty that took this on and were early adopters. And hopefully our process will kind of be a model for how other subspecialties of medicine could do could do work like this to establish guidelines that really fit their practice settings.
It also correlated to a real fertile soil of our organizations that represent us interested in this project and willing to have the discussion. And we felt like this stemmed from those initial conversations with SAEM and ASAP about, this is something that we want to move forward on, and we feel like there's a problem. So kudos to the organizations for saying that it's right timing.
Yeah. What do you see as the most controversial thing in your manuscript? Tough question. Maybe nothing. Huh?
Anything that has to do with finances become difficult. I don't know if it's the most controversial. And I think that's always true for every organization. When I brought these forth to some of my colleagues and friends, the first reaction was, I can't afford this. And I understand that. But I think what's the most controversial thing in all of it is the concept that anybody who is as progressive progressive enough to read this is the fact that they even have a problem. The acknowledgement that there's even an issue is something that people are shocked by. I mean, your reaction was, this is common sense. And for me, that's the most controversial issue. Because we as women have worked against these kind of this, swimming upstream all the time. The fact that people want to even consider to take a sample of their own faculty to see if there's bias is really controversial because they don't believe it to be true.
And I would argue with that definitively. It's the fact that it addresses the concept of bias on its head and says, we acknowledge, because it's been proven that there is bias related to gender and a bunch of other things, and we're going to address those biases, admit that we can't change them, right? So it's the acceptance that bias exists and it's not going anywhere, right? And so people don't like to accept that they have bias or that they can't wish it away. And so we accept their biases, we understand they're not going anywhere, and we're going to walk you through the process where you acknowledge them and work through them, past them, and with them. And that is the one that people aren't as on. They want to get rid of overnights for the third trimester, and they're cool with an ombudsman that's going to be available to people. They think that it sums up to, have women and men both available for jobs. But the minute that you acknowledge that there are biases in the department and that they've been there and that they're not going anywhere, people tend to give you pushback.
Yeah, I mean, looking at a lot of these guidelines, it's not a one and done kind of thing. I think people approach gender bias and they want an event. Let's do this one thing, and then we've done it. Let's recruit up a bunch of women, or let's establish a women's group, and then we've reached that bar of cultural competency. It's like that. It's like, do you ever get competent and then you're just done, or is it this kind of process of always on an ongoing basis kind of guarding against the biases that tend to sneak in? And that's a very tough conversation to ask, because you're asking for a sustained acknowledgement of bias that will never go away, and a sort of ongoing roster of activities that may never have an endpoint. That's the kind of thing we're asking for, and that's a big ask in some ways. But the thing that we really try to do is, we try to avoid any language that insinuates it's on the fault of any individual. It's not like some evil person who is sexist who's imposing this. It's implicit bias in all of us that is kind of built into organizations, and how can we systematically guard against it at every point of entry? So it enters in the recruitment process, in the interviewing process, in the hiring process, in the specific negotiations, in the process of actually maintaining your employees, and then in the process of advancing them. So it's really like the life cycle of bias. And how can we, if we're going to guard against bias at all, it can't be at just one of those stops. It needs to be at every single one on an ongoing basis. So I think that's some of it too. I can see somebody reading it and just feeling like, it's, it's exhausting. We're asking for a long-term relationship here with equity. And so, and we barely know each other, Some people have barely, they're just dating with the idea of
we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. I'm just going to go to that.
One of the things that I think is also really important is that so many people believe that a lactation room is the answer to gender inequity. And I think the other part that was really important about this, Esther, and you're saying this really beautifully, is that this is a long-standing, longitudinal commitment to making this better. And I think when you talk about what was shocking to people was that there was more than just a single event.
Interesting. Well, we've gotten kind of the end of our questions, but anything you guys want to say in summary to finish this up?
How would you see this as successful? I'm interested in thinking about how academic medicine would feel like this was a successful publication and a successful push to get these concepts out there, and what role our journals have in representing us to make sure that this is improved.
The obvious thing I'd say would be if we could come up with a really good way, some markers of bias. Or performance that we could measure and then look at in 2 years or 1 year, or at some point and say, hey, look how this has changed. It hasn't changed at all. This wasn't enough. Versus this is getting better. We're on the right track. or it's getting worse. We better up our game and not just write guidelines and actually make some major interventions. I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I think that I think that outcomes measures are really important. I think that it's a very kind of, I don't want to say it's very amorphous, but this is a kind of complicated thing to track, right? With so many recommendations and kind of giving everybody the opportunity to put them in as they see fit for their department, it's harder and harder to track how the whole thing was received. Even just to acknowledge that these are real and they exist would probably be a first step. I think that tracking implementation of things like lactation facilities and maternity programs is possibly a really good idea. But again, those are like the minimum obvious standards, and they don't really address 90% of the stuff that we were trying to get to. I think that the commitment to the concept would be a great thing to track, because, you know, the first step in success is convincing everyone to get on board. And if this alone convinces the people to read it, and more importantly, believe it's true, even if they don't see it for themselves. So some of the biggest successes I've had in this concept of equity in gender is convincing those that don't think there's inequity to accept there may be something they can't see. If this paper does that, to me, that's a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think I would love to see some of the long-term markers, but I agree with Dara. I mean, I had a moment just last night. I was on a shift with two amazing female residents, and one of them is job hunting right now. And she said, I took some things from that article and I asked them in my interview to see whether they had answers for me. And I was like, we just won. I mean, that's exactly what we wanted. I mean, we had residents coming in saying, so how can I even tell if an employer is supportive of women? I don't have specific things to talk to them about. I don't know what policies to ask for. And she basically took it, walked in the interview, and she walked out knowing that they were not going to be her employer because she felt that they had no awareness or preparation for supporting women emergency physicians. So I felt like this is exactly what we wanted to do, and I can't quantify that. I just hope that that thing is happening all over the country, and that you know, on an individual level, we'll start to see the, you know, that can happen now, and then we'll start to see the ripple effects of that later on, when we really get some of these large employers of women of emergency physicians to start to pay attention to these and start to articulate, you know, what their policies are.
Yeah.
I support whatever they say. They're so good.
So this is just the beginning too. So we have a lot of work to be done. You know, we considered this the first round of guidelines, just starting where most people could agree. And then really trying to suss out these guidelines in different settings. You know, they're going to be different for academic settings versus community settings, for large groups versus small groups. We appreciate there are many, many different ways that these guidelines can play out. So that was our ultimate goal, was to start with this and then move forward, you know, for the rest of our careers.
Yeah. We're hoping that there's a 2.0 and a series of conversations about this. Because starting the conversation is super important, but having people want to have the next conversation is so valuable. So I'm really grateful to your organization and to Academic Emergency Medicine for not only supporting this, but for pursuing it and promoting it, because that's what we need to make change.
And we are 100% available for feedback, for ideas, for partnerships, for any of this. Because at the end of the day, the only way this works in different environments is if we have it being implemented in different environments. And so if any chairs or program directors or chiefs of service or directors of departments that I've never heard of want to ask if these 5 recommendations would make an impact on their faculty, or if any questions about how to import like small incremental changes to their departments, we would love for each department to be studying on their own and help them through that as an extension of this. These are like the sprinkles of ideas that kind of, this is the trunk of the tree of gender equity in emergency medicine. You know, it's a centralized place where we can kind of grow all these different ideas of how this works in the future for other people.
Just to put in another unmatched analogy, you know, I felt like the way that this piece was able to be sort of an enzyme or a catalyst was great, because, you know, it spurred Jeff Klein to write a kind of moving personal piece about, you know, what gender equity meant to him. And then we had this very nice accompanying personal essay from a female resident who was able to talk about what she's looking forward to in her emergency medicine career. And then two of our senior physicians, Gail D'Onofrio and Jill Barron, wrote a piece that was just really an amazing just overview of women in medicine and in emergency medicine, and just kind of laying out the good news and the bad news and really where we need to move forward. So it wasn't just our piece. I think it just all came together to give kind of like a nice picture of what gender equity means to different people within our specialty, and really the big job that we have before us in the upcoming years.
Well, yeah, this was it was a great piece and an important piece. I think it's really it's got to be one of the key things for academic emergency medicine, to have something so important as how to advance women in our practice and how to make our practice better, a better place to work. I really applaud you guys and your efforts. This is really cool stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this with us, Jim. We appreciate it.
Oh, yes, it's fantastic.
I think we're not going to leave a lot of editing. I'll cut out a lot of stuff at the beginning and maybe re-record.
My streaming kids might want to cut them out.
Most everything after that, I didn't care your kids come in. I mean, working as part of academic medicine, right? You can work at home.
No, I off the record, we're still on live. I have a lot of help, except for this 1 hour.
That's awesome.
Well, thanks a lot, you guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Drew. Thanks for being so flexible with the timing too. It's been hard to get all our schedules.
Later tomorrow. Scott's going to edit it this afternoon. So
awesome.
Bye.
Thanks so much, Jim. And we will, of course, promote as soon as it comes out. So let us know.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.